Now it's time for Great Moments in History. The year 1935, one that would shape the future of America and the world. Across the seas, Hitler builds his power by violating the Treaty of Versailles by requiring that all young German men perform military service. Hermann Goering increases tensions further as he takes command of the Luftwaffe, Germany's air force. He continues to eliminate his rivals through his secret police, the dreaded SS, who answer to none but him, and building horribly cruel and deadly concentration camps. Back here at home, America is mired in the Depression, with soup lines and hard times a fact of life for most of the country. President Roosevelt introduces the second part of the New Deal, which includes the WPA, the Works Progress Administration, a massive jobs program designed to help the American worker get back on his feet and restore his dignity. With a stroke of his pen, he also begins the Social Security Administration, providing financial peace of mind to older Americans. On the big screen, America marvels at the first Technicolor film, Becky Sharp. Black and white will soon be a thing of the past.
Then believe that I'm your Becky and that I love you and nothing else matters.
Audiences meet the stuttering but lovable cartoon swine Porky Pig in his movie, I Haven't Got a Hat.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear.
Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert star in the film It Happened One Night, which takes Best Picture at the Oscars. Just north of Tinseltown, work is winding down on San Francisco's beautiful Golden Gate Bridge, destined to become an American icon. Just outside the Wild West gambling town of Las Vegas, Nevada, work is completed on an engineering masterpiece, the Hoover Dam, bringing electricity, water, and economic growth to the region. Back under the bright lights of Broadway, New York, New York, composer George Gershwin wows audiences with his great American opera, Porgy and Bess, which features an all-black cast. 1935 is a year that produces babies destined for greatness, including the Dalai Lama, Woody Allen, Jerry Lee Lewis, Herb Alpert, and the king himself, Elvis Presley. But there was one more baby born that year. To those watching this program, he would become more important and loved than all the others combined. On November 14, 1935, Francis and Clara Mullaney welcomed Michael Mullaney into the world. This is his story.
Well, I was born in Northport, Long Island, and I grew up in the little village of Greenlawn in the town of Huntington. Attended grade schools in Greenlawn and attended high school and middle school in the town of Huntington, which was 10 miles distant, and that was back in the 50s. The first I remember in growing up was during World War II, and things were tough to come by. We didn't have the automobiles to drive us around because couldn't get gasoline. And basically things were a lot simpler. We didn't have all the material things we have today. We didn't have television. Actually, we didn't have the phones. Most people had party phones. Skyscraper to me was 3 stories. We had probably 15 kids in our grade school per class. Our teacher, I always remember going on field trips, packing 5, 6 kids in a car that today would be frowned on because naturally she didn't have seat restraints. It was a different way of life. And believe me, I'm glad I was born when I did. Well, my dad was a guiding influence to me. He started out in the mink and silver fox business, and that naturally, when the Depression came, went defunct. And therefore he became a plumber out of necessity. Basically, I learned to work with the plumbing tools, and that's been very handy. It's helped me in my ability to do things in the house that a lot of people can't do. My father was an air raid warden. We had air raids. He worked in a defense plant 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, Grumman aircraft. He was a ball player. Taught me a little bit about baseball in the times we could, but again, it was a different way of life at that time. He was a contractor, and oftentimes contractors that owed him a considerable amount of money used to talk about, oh, get Frank to do it, because he won't hound you for money. Because they didn't know I was feeding the information to my mother, who was hell on fire when it came to getting money. Well, my mother was a very caring person, and you know, I had 2 sisters, and she always provided well for us, whatever she could. And I got to see, I always remember she brought me to the Empire State Building. Of course, I loved peanut butter, as I still do, and she had the chef up in, or the person in the restaurant up on the 86th floor made me a big peanut butter sandwich with a lump on it, and going to see where she grew up in Manhattan. Good times, good times.
Was she a good cook?
Oh, yes. Yeah, she used to love to do roast pork, and roast tongue. Yeah, that was it, roast tongue. Yeah, my wife loved that. I'm looking at her.
Did you ever get that? She ever fix
No,
it?
no, I get tongue, but I think roast tongue. Well, it could be roast tongue. I don't remember getting whipped for doing anything. I just knew what I had to do, and you did it. That was about it. You know, you knew you couldn't go hollering, hey, I want money, I want this, I want something. You knew it wasn't going to happen, and so you did with what you had, you know, and you made out with it. It was a different society in that many of the people that lived around you were so-called stations in life were way higher than you were, but you all lived together. Same houses. I mean, we had a fellow across the street from us was the marketing manager for Getty Oil, all the way from Maine to Florida. Went to school with his daughter, and probably learned how to drink some whiskey in his house, because there wasn't any in my house. He always had plenty of it. He always had big parties, and learned the Cornell Whiff and Poof song, and oh, we had great times, great times. It was a different life, society, you know, not the so-called rich and poor you got today. No, I just sort of, I'm a person that didn't have any grandiose plans. I just sort of migrated, took opportunities where they were, and did all right.
He had great work ethics. I don't think he ever missed a day of work in the 32 years of the telephone company.
I was a member of what they call the Buildings Engineering Group, which was, in those days, it was a support group to the company. In other words, we had nothing to do with telephones per se. We arranged leases and buildings for offices. We did minor design for interior alterations, and I was always an outside field engineer, which gave me the flexibility I liked, because I was never cut out to sit behind a desk. I was very happy being the field guy, and they did the office work, and I just went out and, well, we did some field inspections and attending some lunches, and good days. Always had a wonderful time. We partied hardy, worked hard. Got a hell of a lot more done than they do today.
I was in paying vouchers for the engineers, and that's when I first met Mike.
And lo and behold, she was walking around with the money, handing out the vouchers to the different people. So I said, well, good-looking girl.
I had heard he was dating someone. I was also interested in this other fellow. And then we had a bet.
During a strike, we were elevator operators. And I think I won the bet by getting her up to the top floor the fastest, by bypassing other floors or whatever.
Mike had asked me to go out. We got together, a few more dinners and what have you, and then I brought him to my family, which was very difficult for me because I have 2 retarded brothers that I did not share with Mike before he came to the house. And he was great. He was great, and I thought, well, this is wonderful.
And I came to the house, and she said, oh, come on next door and meet my aunt and uncle. So as memory goes, I can remember walking in and seeing, you know, a little narrow house, 15 foot wide, and the living room, a bunch of women sitting there, and I look over and I see a bunch of guys sitting around a dining room table with a big chandelier hanging down, and I see cards and I see gun holsters all on the break front. and a bunch of half-quart Rheingold cans.
My aunt and uncle, which I adore, Dottie and Teddy, my mother's sister, was there with all their friends. And they are policemen and firemen. And they had to take their holsters off. And so I had no idea where this whole thing was going to go.
She introduced me, and the guy says, "Here, sit down." So I sat down.
Mike sat down and socialized very nicely with them. And my aunt was quite a character. She would say to him, "Excuse me, Mike, excuse me, Mike." Then after a few more beers, she'd say, "You Irish SOB, just move your legs."
Needless to say, we never went out. I woke up at about 3 in the morning, sleeping on the couch, looking at a pyramid of half-quart Rheingold cans that went all the way from right up to the chandelier.
That was your first date?
That was my first date, yes. So I was brought into the family that way. Needless to say, they used to like to have a few beers.
They knew how to party. They partied hardy, but they'd give you the shirt off their back. He was very kind to me, very kind to my parents, very kind to my brothers, which, let's face it, there's a lot of people that would have run the other way, thinking, you know, what type of a family is this? But no, he was very, very good, very, very handy, could fix almost anything. My uncle who lived right next door to me, suffered a stroke at 50, I believe it was 51. And Mike would go in and help him, and he put up a hook and pulley between the doorway so that my uncle could do his daily exercise, because one whole side of his body was paralyzed. And he was just always there, ready to help, which was wonderful. We dated for a year, and we got engaged. He asked my father if he could marry me. Of course, my father never thought anyone was good enough for me. I was the only girl. And then we got married almost 2 years since we started to date, September 12th of 1964.
Basically, I started out, I just went to a 2-year school, and I studied highway and bridge engineering, which was a school that was created to prepare Seabees and military people that had construction and engineering background from military that had been in the Korean War and the World War II. And I went there for 2 years, and it was supposed to be the beginning of a state university for engineering, and it never materialized.
Basically, all the credits he had earned, all they gave him credit was 7. So he basically had to start from scratch. So it took him 6 years.
So I went to Brooklyn Poly under the GI Bill, and I studied all the stuff you had to get for the BS degree.
He would come home at 5 and had to be fed right away, left at 5:30, and didn't come home until maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
So then I got the bright idea of go to law school. So to go to law school, you had to have an accounting degree. So that's when I went to Brooklyn College, and the rest is history. Because that was, you know, never went to law school, but got the accounting degree, but I don't even do my own taxes. So it bought my house, and that's what ultimately bought my house in Albany.
All the hard work that Mike did, enduring, going to work all day and then going to night school, and yes, I did have the 3 boys at the time, but it paid off in the end. It really did, because look at where we are today. I was like the mother, the father, and I was never one to say, wait till your father comes home, because I handled what punishment needed to be done at the time.
Most of the parenting, unfortunately, was left to my wife, because again, I came in from work and I generally was off. I went to school from 6 to 10. So And I did that for several years.
Mike was very involved, even though he wasn't at home. He would travel maybe 2-3 days a week. But when the kids had their baseball, he almost always tried to be there.
Who knows where they would have ended up if I took care of them. You know.
Well, you were the man that brought
Yeah.
the money in. You were the breadwinner, and that was pretty critical.
Yeah, they could have met up with the mob down in the docks or something, you know, who knows.
He's always been there for me and the children, And when they were right, we were behind them 100%, and myself. And if you were wrong, he let you know it. Hard work. No matter what your job is, you do it the best you can. Remain humble, because there's always somebody that can be better than you. And be proud, and be very respectful.
I fear for today when kids have no real sense of value to things. Just my feeling. I think that oftentimes we're too wasteful, and I could go on for hours on that subject, but the old saying, waste not, want not. What's the definition of rich? You know, I always liked the story of knowing the Hamptons. They have a lot of rich folk out there. And this party was going on where this guy, Kurt Vonnegut, was the guest to one of these lavish parties. And that particular host of that party had made a couple of $1 billion in one day in the sale of some of his stock in one of his buyout firms. So one of the people in this circle of people, as you do at cocktail parties, they all gather around and listen to the wisdom of all the loud talkers. And this guy said, "Do you realize in all the books you've written, you'll never make what this guy made in one day?" And they say, Vonnegut said, "Well, but he'll never have what I have." And everybody stopped. Well, how can somebody with all this have, you know, and you have something he don't have? He said, "Yes, I have enough." And I think that if you could take that word enough and get rid of greed, you wouldn't have the problems you have today.
What do you want them to know?
Well, what I'm all about doesn't matter. It's what they're doing, what they're about. That's what matters, right? And I just basically tell them that, remember, learn what you can, take advantage of what you can learn, always learn, and treat people well. Don't be greedy. You know, what else can you say? Don't waste. I don't know. It's just, I hope that, I think many times the key is knowing enough about the subject that you feel you know to know what you don't know. You know, and expose yourself to people that can be of an influence. I always love what a fellow once told me. He says the definition of knowledge is what you remember after you've forgotten everything you've learned. And, you know, these little things are easy to remember, but if you follow the philosophy of it, it makes sense.
Our children are very, very giving, and they're very, very giving to us. I guess we did something right. We love them very, very much, are extremely proud of each one of them. Michael, with his abilities to create, and his mechanical ability is unbelievable. Patrick is probably, from what most people say, is more of my clone. He's very social, very, very caring, and he has turned out to be the best son you could ever imagine. Kevin, we were both extremely proud to have the first doctor in the family, and then for him to graduate with such honors. Our daughter, she was the most perfect child, honestly. And she put up a lot with her brother's teasing. They've never forgotten us. I wish them the best and thank them very, very much for being such wonderful children. If I were to die tomorrow, I've had it all. I really have had it all. And I think Mike can say the same thing.
Definitely.
Our lives have gone much further than I ever thought possible.
Good woman.
Yeah.
See that?
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I think I paid my dues. I did the best by people that I could. I think I was fair. I'd like to be. Had my differences. And what else can you say? There's a few that I've met in life and crossed in life, and I don't really give a damn about them. I don't think too much about it, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So you just leave it at that and you move on. Yeah. Simple enough. Well, I just want to thank all you folks for all the years that you've stuck by us and everything you've done for us. And that's every one of you. So Godspeed, keep up the good work, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you.
And I'd like to add mine that thank you for being a great part, the biggest part of my life. My children, my grandchildren, my daughter-in-laws, son-in-law. Thank you for being our friend, and thank you for standing by us and helping us in time of need. And I hope I can always repay your friendship. Thank you. Mwah!
Thank you.